recording. We are live. What's
wow.
up, everybody? It's thanks for joining us today. For Beyond the Letter, we have some special contributors. We thought that we would keep something in line in a topic today, kind of. Still kind of throwing stuff at us, the team was throwing us. But we got Sanaz back with us.
Hi!
She took all the criticisms from the comments. No,
I did. I'll fight you.
and she's gonna get more criticism.
TikTok star.
No, our TikTok
is in
star.
the house.
And then we have, we have my wife with me, Jada Pinkett Smith.
Jada 2.0.
Hey!
That's what that is.
If you're watching us online, she's got some nice.
Listen, there's a
braids.
million people that I would rather compare Ashlee to than Jada Pinkett Smith.
Right.
Wow, I didn't know the debate would start already.
Okay, all right.
My bad.
What's Red Table Talk?
I thought
Red-
I
the
thought
Red
Jada
Table
was
Talk?
very,
The Red
you know,
Table Talk? Yeah.
I have opinions about her, but anyways.
I thought she was very beautiful.
Beauty is in the eye of the beholder,
right.
they say.
Ashley has
As the
braids
good
on.
book says, beauty is
We
in
have
the
my
eye of the
wife with me as well today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course.
It's an honor.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We have some great videos today. We're gonna talk about all things male and female. Okay, so
All right.
Man and
Perfect.
female,
Sounds
but
good.
all good
Yeah.
things.
we got some relationship stuff, some marriage stuff. We obviously got our normal friends in the building, the production crew. So
My
they're going to
babies.
join the conversation. We're going to see what they got to say. But we are going to talk about some great stuff when it comes to maybe relationship, male and
Yeah.
female roles.
All right.
We got our oldest brother, Nathan's wife. For those that are just tuning in for the first episode, we have Sanaz with us, who is our sister-in-law. She's about 1 to 3 decades older than me.
Stop! Every time.
So
I am
rude.
10 years wiser.
Yeah,
Thank you
that's
very
good.
much.
Yeah.
So really believing in the boomers today and
Wow.
seeing what,
Wow.
Boomer
That's rude.
representation.
Wow.
So rude.
I like that.
Yeah,
I like that.
and then we got my wife here today, who's gonna. I mean, we're gonna have fun. So we got. I didn't want to say.
Listen, at least you did. You called me a boomer. What are you going to
Oh, I feel like I got her with the Jada thing already. So,
It wasn't a compliment, clearly.
I mean, I thought it was gonna be. Well, here we go. All right, Gabe. I know you got some good stuff for us today.
We do.
In the house, we're gonna look at some great videos and have conversations.
So this first one is, it's like a conversation between a daughter and their mom. And hold on. Yes. Okay.
There he is.
and
There he is on video.
and she's talking to her mom about how she's just a different kind of woman.
My mom is in town visiting, and my husband just got home from work, and this lady bops up off the couch as soon as he gets in the door to go run over and make him a little plate of food. Because I wasn't making him a plate. Like, why would you plate his food for him? He's grown.
Because I'm a different type of woman.
I'm a different type of
Dang.
woman. Okay.
Dang.
So for a little context, the setup here is we have a wife who's in her, looks like she's in her 30s, and her mom's coming to visit in town, and her mom is setting up a plate for her husband, her daughter's husband, setting up the meal, and the wife's obviously like, what is going on? And the mom's response is, I'm a different type of woman.
Ashley, have you ever made a plate for your husband, Adam?
I have made it, but I have had one instant where my aunt had told me, she goes, don't start something with your husband you don't want to finish. So
That's very
that
true.
Was,
I mean,
that
that's-
was
Actually,
getting
didn't start a lot of
I
things.
sure didn't, because I wasn't about to finish them. And that's like getting food. So like if you're going out to a friend's gathering, and normally the wife would serve him food. Well, there's some times where I'm like, I don't feel like asking you 10 different times, what do you want to eat? Go get your own plate. So I understand what she's talking about when it means to be a different type of woman, but I think that's just a different culture as well.
What is your facial expression?
I'm not
right
doing it.
now?
I'm still not doing it.
I did detect an accent from her mother. Am I right?
Yeah,
Or,
well,
or
I
did you
don't know.
detect I detected like a Russian accent.
I think that's a you problem. I think you're hoping
Well,
for her to be
Sanaz,
Russian.
do you get? I mean, you cook your husband food every
I
night.
do. Well, and in the beginning, I would make my husband a plate every single time. However, to this day, I still ask my husband if he would like me to serve him a plate, but he is a particular type of man, and he doesn't want me to get it wrong. So he'll go and he'll make his own plate,
Can
like
you
at
describe
Thanksgiving
a
and
moment
whatever.
you got it wrong?
I never got it wrong. I mean, it's not like I never got it wrong, but
Okay.
you know, he's one of those people that he wants to see what there is, and he knows exactly how much of the mashed potatoes and how much of the turkey and how much of this that he's
But this
gonna
is
want.
even if you're cooking it. If you're
No,
cooking
if I'm cooking, I always serve him first, and then I go back and I make my own plate. This happens.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a
But
traditional
I will
woman.
say it's a cultural thing, because as a Middle Eastern woman, it's very much
Well,
a
there's
cultural
a
thing.
great comedy bit about that. Andrew Schultz, he makes a bit where he's like, he compares conservative and liberal countries, and how conservative countries, the women make the best food, where you have like the more liberal countries, the food is crap.
Like England?
like Canada, like who eats
You'll get
Canada
baked
food,
beans and sausage.
or like Sweden, who like Sweden food, like who's eating that? But like Hispanics have great food, Middle Easterns have great food, because the women are in the kitchen cooking more.
Well, that brings a good point, though. But no, that's a good point, though, because you have to look at the fact that video
You guys
was.
don't say?
You guys don't say?
I'm just filling the room out first before I get my opinion.
No. This is family. You can say whatever you need to say whenever you need to say it.
Oh, yeah,
But I
we
will
know.
say
Still ain't cooking.
that was a generational thing, and you have to think about the fact that the mom probably was at home with the kids, and that the daughter probably works. So when you start. Where the men and the women now have similar roles in the house, then the dynamic of the household duties are going to change as well. So I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that the conservative countries like you're talking about, a lot of them still believe that the woman is
Traditional homes.
traditional
to stay
homes.
home.
And so, yes, they're going to serve their husbands, because that is their quote unquote job. If you were to say, my job is in the house, my job is out of the house.
Right.
But if you both have jobs out of the house, then there needs to be compromise also in the house.
Okay, hold on. So y'all are married, right? So you're speaking off of this married perspective. What about when you were dating, and when you were dating somebody, just in that perspective, did you guys get foods for your dates, or was it, oh no, y'all get your food, I'll get mine? So this is like you guys are speaking on a marriage if you're married, right?
Yeah.
So
I
what
think
about dating?
It depended on the, I guess I would say depended on the atmosphere. So if Adam came to my house, and I would serve him, absolutely. But if we were out at other friends, we would mingle together and get in the line and sort of serve ourselves together. But out and if we were at like just dating or anything like that, we weren't ever in an intimate moment where we were at the house alone and I was serving him or anything like that to play house. So it was more so when we were in an atmosphere style to where I was able to serve him, and it's just feeding off of how he was and his persona and his personality. If he felt more timid and reserved, then I was going to step out because I'm more outgoing and I don't care.
Yeah. Cool, that's good.
I think part of it too is like what is the personality of the individuals, because I know like some stuff is a cultural standard, but like there are stuff in certain cultures that aren't healthy as well, right? So you take in not all, but in a lot of Hispanic cultures, you kind of have this idea of a woman will serve her husband, but you also have this idea within Hispanic cultures of this thing called machismo, which is like this male masculinity that is very disrespecting towards women as well, like dishonoring towards women. And like the husband may come home and have like no engagement with his kids, and that's not all Hispanic homes, but that exists in many, and that term machismo is like not a very good word that you use, but you do use it in reference of like a household that's kind of where the man is this way and then the woman's this way. And so it's really big in Japan. Like there's this, you could look it up. I forget exactly what the terminology is, but there's a saying that says, like basically in Japan, when a husband retires and he gets his full benefits in like his 50s or 60s, what happens is within a week of his retirement, his wife will actually give him his divorce papers, and she will take half of his retirement. And there's a Japanese saying that says, I took care of your family in your life, now you take care of me. In other words, while you were working and out in the job, I fed your kids, I took after your kids, I looked after you. Now that you're retired, I get to live my life, now, and I
Separate
get
from you.
separate from you because I did my job, and then now I get half of your money because I did my job unpaid. Now you're retiring. Now we could go our separate ways, and I could live my life. There's an actual like Japanese term for it, and someone might find it. Let us know. So it's like
It's commonplace.
oh yeah, it's commonplace. Like like there's a word for it in Japan where
Is
it's
it like culturally accepted though? That's the
it's
question.
culturally
it's not
no.
like
Yeah.
divorce. It's not like she's just
No.
divorcing him.
No,
but
no.
it's just like
It's like,
a
oh.
cultural like
Yeah, it's an embraced custom. You know, not all,
like
obviously. I'm sure
milestone,
the men,
like
yeah.
life milestone. Like
Yeah.
get married, have your first
You're
kid.
right, yeah.
Your wife divorces you, collects all the alimony.
When you're divorced, or when you
Yeah.
retire, so he don't
When
have
you
to spend.
retire.
So he doesn't have to pay child support anymore, but he does owe half of his retirement, right? It's crazy, but it's this saying that says, "Okay, I'll handle business from the home and your kids, and I'll raise your kids, and I'll do this." So you do have some customs, and I don't know whether they think it's a good thing or a bad thing, but there is this idea that. Really, I think it comes down to like what your personality is and how do you feel and you approach it in that sense. Because like for me, just in life, I get uncomfortable when people serve me. Like that's just something I'm very uncomfortable with. So like, even if I'm at a restaurant and they're like, here, let me clean that up. I'm like, no, let me help. Let me try to, or if I'm somewhere like the idea of someone serving me, that's kind of my issue. So I'm like, so when Ashlee tries to, early on when we got married and she was like, let me do your laundry, I think that's what I'm supposed to do as a wife. And I was like, no, I'm okay. Like I could do it myself.
It was after I shrunk a sweatshirt.
Yeah.
On purpose?
No, because she didn't know how to do laundry.
Oh gosh.
Well, she still does laundry for
Right.
3 other people in the
Yes,
house.
She
So
does it
she's
for
all
Brian.
right.
She shrinks the boy stuff all the time. And then, for her, like she didn't cook. She was a professional athlete. So she was, up until we met and she retired, like that was Ashlee's focus was athletics, a career, this thing. So for me to just be like, okay, well, I married you. This was your goal in life, was to have a career and do all this. But now, I need you to totally change your whole path, and I need you to cook for me, and I need you to do my laundry, but also we're a 2-income home because we want to live in Southern California. So you also need to work, but I still also want these traditional standards. That never felt comfortable for me. That never felt right for me. So like in our household, if we're not eating out or door dashing or whatever, I mean, majority of the time it's going to be me who's cooking, but she tends to do the dishes after I'm done cooking. And so it's just I think with new practices and new economy, you do have to like restructure the way that kind of the home formulates, like you said, which is like that mom probably was a stay-at-home mom, the one that was like, oh, I'm a different woman, and it's like the daughter maybe works too. So it's a totally different thing.
Well, she even said in the video, she said, "Why are you making him a plate? He's gross."
Well, let me ask you. I get this something. Oh, continue. I'm sorry.
Oh, no,
I have a question for you guys.
No, go for it.
Yeah, no, because I said I detected a Russian accent. And so, but there's something going on right now in America amongst mainly like middle-aged men, maybe gone through a divorce or disgruntled with American women. And they're getting brides in the East, whether that's the Philippines or whether that's Russia, Ukraine. They're getting these, what do they call them, mail order brides or whatever. But the reason being,
parts of Africa as well.
But the reason being specifically because they have that traditional mindset. And so my question to you is, what do you guys think about that? And is that something to where it's like, the grass, you're thinking the grass is greener on the other side, but there may be some issues with even that.
Well, you guys know,
like that.
listeners might not know, my brother has cerebral palsy. So he is 100% dependent on other people. And when he wanted to get married, he realized he was not going to be able to marry an American woman because an American woman is not going to take care of him. And he needed somebody to take care of him. And he met somebody online and flew out to the Philippines and proposed to her. And they've been married for over a decade with 2 beautiful children. But, he understood that was never going to come from an American woman. It just wasn't. And Filipino women and I don't want to generalize Filipino women,
Right.
but in his case, there tends to be a little bit more of traditional values where the woman does take care of the husband, and financially the husband takes care of the wife and gives her an opportunity. And there are a lot of women who want to come out here for the opportunity. Everybody understands, at the situation. I do believe that they love each other, they're in love, that they want to stay married, and all of those things. But there were definitely factors involved for both of them as to why they got married. But a major one, as for my brother, was the fact that he knew that an American woman would never take care of him.
Oh, wow.
Or the likelihood of finding that woman was slim to none, right?
Very slim.
Because there's a couple on TikTok, a white couple, where he has he doesn't have any limbs, and he's married to what other people always comment as a presumably beautiful, normal American woman, and you always see in the comments of their stuff is like, why dude must be rich or whatever. Like,
who is this? Because I may know of them.
It's I forget their name, but it's a white couple, and he doesn't have any limbs. And,
is he in his like his 50s?
They're young.
Oh, they're young.
Okay. No, they're probably like late 20s, early 30s.
Okay.
Yeah, very. But the comments are always like trying to make sense of why, and she's always like, "Cause I love him," like, and they're like, "No, why?"
Well, a lot of the accusations are, "Oh no, you're only doing
it
it to collect his health insurance,
Right.
his insurance,
Yeah.
and because for the money."
And she's like,
and
"No,
stuff."
because I love this person," and I think that idea of like in your brother's case, I mean, just him doing the statistics is like, what is the likelihood that be my story? Like, where this guy, this individual, he found it in America, but what was the likelihood that I was going to find it? And so I'm going to go to a culture that maybe has more customs that views relationships different, beauty different. We've talked about that before. Is like a lot of times we first start in America, we start a love in a relationship as just the attraction. How attracted am I into this person? How much do we have similar interests? And then that's kind of how we view. But like when you actually get married, you realize, well, you both age. So that youthfulness and that attraction changes over time. Your wife ends up having kids, so her body changes. And so that youthfulness may be there, may not be there. And then interest, I mean, our interests change every 5 to 7 years. So in an American context, a lot of times we find ourselves kind of in trouble because we base the beginning of the relationship off of very face value things that end up changing in a very short period of time.
Biologically, does a woman's mindset change if her husband, or if she's making more than her husband? Is she more inclined to divorce her husband if she's more independent and less dependent on him financially? I would say there's a natural component to that, and in the sense that that is a temptation for, maybe a temptation for, I don't want to get in the mind of women, but I'm just assuming, because I see cases of it where a woman starts to become more independent financially to where she doesn't need her husband, and she gets to that point where, well, he's no longer providing for me because I provide for myself. I no longer need him in this regard, in this regard, in this regard. So why stay with him to begin with? So there's a divorce.
I mean, I think for my parents, I know that my mom, me personally, I know that my mom made more than my dad, and they would have been married for 40 years before he passed. She never brought that up. That was never an issue because he still provided and he was still the man of the house. He was still the disciplinary. He still followed Christ to where she can follow him. And so I think that's where our mindset in society gets it twisted, because a woman makes more. If I were to make more than Adam, makes Adam no less of a man. No, I think we're both equally yoked. I think we're both on the same playing field, and I think we both bring value to this marriage. We had this conversation in Sanaz's house the other day of what it looks like between the house life and the home life, and or the work life and the home life. Ashlee, do I bring as much value as you do, Adam, to the work life as I do home life? And we agreed that I did. But if you guys remember the conversation we had in the house, if you guys wanted to.
The conversation that we had started because Nathan, my husband, got irritated because I call myself the primary parent.
Yes.
And so a conversation happened where he said, "You have to stop calling yourself a primary parent. I am a dang good father." And I said, "I'm not saying you're a dang good father. I'm just saying I'm a primary parent because of all of the things, the mental load that I have to carry as a parent. You do your job great, but you will never understand the mental load of a mother." And so the conversation then kind of switched, and I think it was a very healthy conversation that we had because I think because I think a lot of women do this tick for tack thing, I don't get to do this, and you get to go here, and I don't ever get to do that. I always have to make sure that the kids are taken, and so we get so aggressive with this idea that we don't get the same opportunities. And then Adam came in and began expressing what the mental load of a provider looks like, and how he works. And then we came back and said, but we work as well, but we understand that our work does not equate to your work, just as your parenting might not equate to our parenting. So we kind of agreed collectively that it was like, okay, if you are if you're 70% of the workload, and I'm carrying 30% of that, and then I'm carrying 70% of the home load and you're carrying 30%, then can we agree that we're both equally contributing to the household as a whole? And I thought that was something that was a really great conversation to have, because I think that a lot of couples don't have those conversations where they can respect what the other person brings separately that is still equal.
Yeah, because sometimes you get I think marriages end up either clashing or coming to an end because there isn't this communication or understanding of the value that each person brings. And that's one thing people got to figure out when they get married, and that's the thing we were talking about, because it's either it's exhibited, though it may not be said, it's exhibited in many ways, whereas the individual may come home from work and then maybe one of the spouses has been home with the kids all day, and they go, "Oh, great, you're home. Here are the kids." So there's this idea that, oh, you were out working, you were out playing. Now you're home, do your part with the kids while I take time off. And the person who's the primary breadwinner is going, "Wait a second, I held my bargain today. I was at work, and now you're saying you get time off and I don't get time off. So how can we," and that's stuff me and Ashlee have talked about, is what is it that you need that gives you mental rest? What is it that I need? Because we fell in a season where I felt like I was trying to lose weight. Ashlee loves working out. She enjoys it. That's her passion. That's her love. I hate it nowadays. I don't enjoy it. You can see me if you're watching on video. You can tell the guy could do good by going to the gym a little bit. And so what would always happen is when I would start going to the gym, I would come home from the gym and Ashlee would be like, "Oh, great. Now it's my turn. You watch the kids before you go to work because I'm going to go to the gym now." And I would say, "Listen, we're doing this for two totally different reasons. I'm trying to do this because I'm trying to get healthy and lose weight. You're doing this because you love it and you enjoy it. And so you're viewing that I got time off to go to the gym, but I'm not enjoying it. I enjoy golf. That is what I'm trying to be healthy, but you're enjoying it. So when I come home and you're like, "Oh, it's my turn. You went and had fun in the gym." I'm like, "I didn't enjoy the gym. I'm trying to do it to get healthy." But now you're saying it's this, what Sanaz said, it's this tick for tack thing. You did your part, I get my part. And when you view it in that sense, no, what would be fair would be "Hey, Adam, you love golf. I love working out. How can we make sure we work as a team? But if you go work out, I can't view it like you got time to yourself, because we both agree that you want to get healthier. We both agree that you want to lose weight. So you're not enjoying that. You're doing it for your health. When she works out, she enjoys it. So it's how can we not view it as a tick for tack? How can we find a balance in the relationship and in the workload with the kids? Because in order for one of us to enjoy one thing, someone's got to be on the kids. So it was like, that's where we really have had to communicate the roles that we both play in the house and outside the house with work. And even times when I would like travel and go speak, she'd be like, well, you were on a vacation, early on, like, oh, well, you were on a vacation. And then a couple times she went and traveled and went with me on the road. And she's like, that was miserable. Like, I'm so tired. I feel like I worked 10 days straight. And it's like, yeah, in order to provide for this house, like, me going and traveling speaking is not as fun as you thought it was until you experienced it, So I think it's this deeper understanding of what one person adds towards the other. And the more and more that we look at like celebrities get divorces, like people are fascinated by that.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, look at this celebrity and look at that celebrity and they're not perfect. And well, what gave you the impression that they would be perfect, or look at this celebrity who claims to be a Christian and they got a divorce. It's like, well, what made you think that they were going to have it all figured out? People don't have it figured out, and not everyone is able to have the mature enough conversations to meet each other in the middle and find that balance like we did in your house. Because the reason why that conversation happened in your house was because things were starting to kind of boil over. There was like this tension in the room, I think for everyone. Like Nathan started having this tension of like your statements of primary parent, but I was also feeling this pressure from Ashlee of like, like I know you're working, but you got to do X, Y, and Z, when I felt like I pay majority of all of our bills. So I'm like, okay, you want me to pay majority of all of our bills, but you also want me to come and be 100% present at all of Matthias's practice games in soccer. Like, it's one or the other. Either we got to downsize the house and I could be at all the practice games, or like we got to figure this out and you can't give me this guilt trip, like you're going to miss another practice. And I'm like, well, shoot, that doesn't feel good. Like, yeah, I am going to miss another practice, but it don't feel good hearing that, so what do you want me to do? It's like, oh, well, I want you to be more engaged in this household. It's like, well, okay, like, are you going to make up for the money in the house for that, me being more engaged in the house, or where it is, or, you know, so it is a difficult thing.
So let me ask the single women over here, this question. Do you look for, does it matter in a man that you're going to date? Do you respect more a man or less, or it doesn't matter? And be perfectly honest with a man who makes more money than you, less money. Like if you had two men, one made more, one made less, does that factor into your futuring of the relationship, your decision making? Whether you want to commit to this relationship. Obviously, character is the most. We're all going to say that. We're going to say
faith and
Christ. We're going to say character, and that's obvious. Yep. That's. But apart from that, what are those natural elements that you factor in?
I think a big one for me would be confidence, because a lot of it, one can make more, one can make less, but if the one that makes less has this confidence about himself that he can carry himself just as confident if he didn't make as much as I did, then I think that's a big factor for me when it's like we said, confidence, faith, character, faith, that's a given. But if you have that confidence about you where you're like, I'm still going to uplift you, I'm still going to encourage you, I'm still going to, give you that, the words of affirmation that you need without feeling like, oh, I feel less than. So if you have that confidence, for me, that's one factor that I see that I would look into.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not me. Because there's some confident, like, broke jokers who, like, who don't have a plan for their life. So I would say, like, it's not confidences, and it's not do you make more, do you make less. Do you have a plan for where you want to go? Because I think it depends on the person and their circumstance, what got them to their financial situation, how old they are. So I think there's multiple factors that are in play. But if you have a plan and a vision for what you want your life to look like, and if you have this urge, I do want to be a provider, but right now I'm not the breadwinner, I'm okay with that. I just need to know that that's a place that you want to be. Regardless of if I end up making more money than you, do you have a desire to provide for me?
Yeah, preparation is important, but we were asked, like, if there's another factor that you look into besides, besides that? The faith and the character. Of course, preparation, I agree with you 100%.
vision.
But for me,
My question to y'all is, for newlyweds or for people who are dating, what conversations would you say we need to have early on that would avoid and prevent this friction and this tension, like midway through your marriage or a few years into your marriage? What would you say is good conversations to have?
Oh,
That's a great question.
Fireproofing your marriage. Divorce proofing.
The way I put
you're
it,
going to write a
divorce
book
proof.
on that.
I feel like
working
as long as you really solidify the way that you communicate that, because you're never going to know what the problems are going to come.
Yeah,
you don't
right.
know
You're
until you have children what
You're not gonna
type
prepare.
of issue that creates in a marriage until the children come. People can pretend that they know exactly what they're going to do with their kids when it comes into their marriage, but you don't really know until the kids come. But one of the things for us is that we really, right from the beginning, the very first thing we did in our relationship was we read a book on marriage together. We read a book on purity together, then read a book on marriage together. Then we would have healthy conversations of what we thought our marriage is going to look like, how we were going to communicate in moments of frustration. And then when Adam and Ashlee got married and we began to really trust them and value them in our lives, we were able to have them come in as accountability in our marriage, that if there was tension, we could have a full-blown conversation with them in the room, and there would be no judgment, and it would just be two people who want nothing but our marriage to succeed and would pour into our marriage in that way. And I found that to be one of the best things for our marriage, just being able to have people who know us so well and who love us so much, to be able to speak life into our marriage.
So what you mentioned before, reading the marriage books, doing all of that, having those conversations, that was during dating? Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
It sounds a little creepy to read a marriage
Now, mind you,
book on-
their dating lasted for 72 hours, by the way. So just a note for the,
How
for the
long did you
listeners.
guys
Oh,
date?
yeah.
We
Curious.
dated for 5 months. We were engaged for 5 months.
Got it.
So
Married
we,
within
After almost
12.
a year.
yeah. So we were married within 10 months.
Got you.
But we've been married for 10 years, and we're very happily married.
Period.
I also come from a place where my
Right.
parents got married after 2 weeks,
Yeah.
and they've been married for almost 50 years. They're madly in love. So like
Yeah.
I have seen firsthand that
It's not a cookie cutter.
It's and it's
Right.
not a fairy
Yeah.
tale.
Exactly.
Like
Not-
I think people just expect, a Disney princess being swept off of her feet and all of these things, and they don't understand that to have a healthy marriage, there is a lot of work. It's not bad. It's not. It's just part of life in any relationship that you have, and so you just want to have the best tools for that.
Sorry, I have a lot of questions. Okay.
yeah.
Oh, you can go ahead.
No, please ask it. Maybe it'll have what I was going to say.
So, well, I'm recognizing with people around my age, a lot of my friends who got married at a really young age,
Yeah.
who weren't financially stable, are now 5, 6, 7 years in, realizing, my husband actually isn't as determined that he said he was going to be when we were 21, when we got married. And so they're already in the marriage, and they don't have a husband or a wife that's fulfilling the role they expected or talked about early in their marriage. What advice would you give these younger couples when you're in this thing and it's not really what y'all talked about in the beginning when you guys got married pretty young?
Yeah. There's a couple things I have towards that. Number one, I don't envy anyone who is single or dating nowadays. I recognize that it is very different to be single in 2022 than it was when I was single when I met my wife in 2012, 2013. So almost 10 years ago, the landscape has changed. And the biggest landscape that I see is that, so right now, if you meet an average millennial or older, Gen Xer or boomer, they say that by the time they get to the end of their life, when it's time for retirement, they would have processed through 1 to 4 jobs throughout their lifetime. That's about how many jobs they would have had in the scope of their life. What they're saying is the data suggests that with someone that's Gen Z, that by the end of their life, they would have had 20 to 35 jobs within their lifetime. And there's a lot of speculations on where and why that is, but so what you're seeing with the next generation is one of the things that there's a lot of great things with the next generation, but one of the things that's hindering them is a lack of resiliency. It's a Yelp mentality. If you don't like something, you leave a 1-star review and you keep it pushing. And so you see a lot of people who are young and dating, and they see one red flag, and then, well, that's it. It's time to move on. There's this idea that I'm looking for someone that has a 5-star review. Even when we're young and married now, we're losing resiliency. So we're fighting, and cats and dogs, and they're divorcing younger than ever, really much easier on. And divorce may be an outlook one day that someone needs to look at, depending on how they defiled or broke the marriage covenant. But, within those things, regardless, is if people are moving on from jobs so much quicker, you're talking about millennials and boomers, 1 to 4 jobs, in their lifetime. And you're talking about just in one generation, it goes from 1 to 4 to 20 to 35. Like that's and it really is because they're finding fulfillment in other ways. And it's not just in finances. It's not in the retirement package, because they saw the older generation do it. They see the older generation not very happy. And so they're even they're taking it into relationships, right? So with this lack of resiliency, but also this lack of accountability as well, because we've deconstructed our culture of responsibilities of a man and responsibilities of a woman. So the man doesn't have to be a man anymore, and the woman doesn't have to be a woman anymore. So you have those aspects going for it as well. So you have young couples where it's like, yeah, my husband told me he had drive. He was going to be a real estate mogul or whatever. Though that was wordsmithing, I would argue that within his life, when you married him, there were crumblings of food that you can see where he may have been a lot of talk and not a lot of do, and so I think there are a lot of aspects that you could begin to weigh that, and if you're in the middle of it, I think some of the biggest things is embracing your faith in Christ, getting accountable to other men, growing with other men, and being inspired by other men. If you're a man, if you're a woman, being inspired by other women, because a lot of women, my wife has said that. She's like, I would love to cook, but I don't know how. And there's women in the church that will be like, well, I'll show you. And how many recipes have you been given by women in the church?
So many that I haven't even done one.
The church being the church.
Right? I can make a cookbook.
So there are other women that are like, hey, let me help you, let me give you some cookbook tips and, all that kind of stuff like that. And so I think that's partly of where if you're in a marriage that's in the middle of it, like, getting in community with other married couples, getting around other men. But we've talked about it before on the podcast. I also think within your resiliency, it's measuring what a person's view of their mother and father is. Because if a young man didn't have a good relationship with his father or mother, then the person he marries, he's also looking for them to also fulfill that void that they had from their mother and father. And vice versa, if a woman didn't have a great relationship with her mother and father, she may be looking from the man to fulfill something there. So a person having trauma in their life does add to what they will bring into their marriage. And so that would be, I think if you're doing a premarital thing, that should be regular conversations, how a person views family life, because you're creating a family. So if that person has a messed up worldview of family and what a mother and father, they're just going to create that with you, So if my father always skipped out for me, if my father was never around, well, unless they got a new perspective of that, well, you're going to start having kids and they're going to be like, well, I'm better than my father was. At least I'm in the house. It's like, so that's how they're going to perceive their viewpoint. And so that you really at the dating phase or newly married phase, you have to really, really start to address, like where those wounds are, and you got to heal those, and you can't look for your mate to be the fix of those things.
Yeah,
that is what's going to cause a lot of conflict.
So definitely, like accountability, you need strong. if you're a man, you need strong older men who have been in marriage longer than you to help you, to give you guidance, to give you wisdom. And for a woman, vice versa, if you want to stay in that marriage and that marriage to survive. That's critical, especially if you didn't grow up with that example, which most people probably have. But so I've been married 12 years. I've been the longest married. And everything that could destroy a marriage we've been through. You know, my dad has said, told me that there are 3 reasons to divorce. And I got married young too, 22. And so we're also going through those issues of like maybe some regret we got married so young because she's feeling like she wasn't able to do certain pursuits that she wanted to do. And so we're having to wrestle with those in the present. But my dad has said that there are 3 reasons to divorce, you know, abandonment, adultery, and biblical justifications for divorce. Yep. Abandonment, adultery, and assault. So physical violence. Mm-hmm. So those are your 3 green lights. Now, the preference is that you do everything to stay, to be committed, to work it out. But in God's eyes, any of those 3 things happen, you can divorce. And God is like, you know, I'm cool with that as long as you know. But if those 3 have not taken place, then we obviously say as Christians, as leaders, we say divorce is sin. You stay in that marriage. And so that's where it comes to kind of the insight that I can just give to this. I mean, I'm not claiming I know it all, because God knows I don't. My marriage has been hell on earth. But no, you know, factors that we couldn't necessarily control. So I've been you know, we had an issue early on, you know, and then I followed by 6 years of me being virtually bedridden from a medical malpractice a case in which I'm virtually disabled and in pain 24/7. And so, you know, she had to step up to the plate. There was a form of abandonment that I was doing towards my family, but it was outside of my control. Yeah. So, but she had to step in, and she had to fulfill the role of mother and father in a lot of areas for several years, you know, a few years. And I'm just getting back on my feet, you know, but she had to fill that role. Yeah. You know, more important than anything is your will. Yeah. Your will and your grit to just endure. You know, if those 3 things are not happening in your marriage, you have no justification for divorce. Yeah. That is where your will comes in. That is where your grit comes in. That is where you just say, you know what? I have a kid. I have 2 kids. I have 3 kids. Even if it's just for the sake of my children, I will not leave this man. I will not leave this woman just for the sake of my kids. So, you know, it just, you got to be strong. You got to be strong. If you don't have justification for leaving that relationship, you have to figure it out. You have to pull up your bootstraps. You got to find help, find mentors. You know, find people that can help you, that can walk beside you. And once again, that's where we sell the church. That's where the church comes in. That's where we sell the church, because I believe the church has the best people to fill those roles in a person's life, mentorship, you know, exampleship, and all of that. So
and I think what makes it a little bit more difficult is the way media is portraying love and marriage as a whole. You have Love is Blind, you have all of these shows that glorify the beautiful side of marriage. So people are entering marriages and relationships with only that side. They're not entering with this mindset of, I need to have this grit and this resilience to even step into this. They're just like, I just want love. And then they get in it, they realize, oh man, this is way more than I thought. And I think the media plays a lot in how we view, at least the next generation views marriages.
Yeah. I think people, because you made a good point in your first question, is, you know, a lot of friends that they say, oh, we met like this and he was like this or she was like this when we met and now they're not this, is you have to, as a couple, you have to regularly calibrate and get to know each other. I remember one time me and Ashlee were on a vacation in Hawaii, and we were talking to a couple, and they were like, this is our first vacation together in 9 years. Like, this couple tells us this. They're like, we have kids, and our oldest is 9, and we have 3 other kids, and this is the first time we've gotten away in 9 years. And we looked at them, and we were like, oh my goodness. Like,
That sucks.
and yeah, like that. Wow. And maybe it don't have to be Hawaii, and maybe you don't have people in your life, but there are ways, 24 hours, 48 hours, you have to recalibrate and get to know each other, because you still change all the time. So one of the worst things you can say in a marriage is, this isn't the person I married. Well, if you thought I was going to be 22 for the rest of my life and having the hormones that I had and had the passion for life that I had, well, guess what? Life kicked me in the butt. Bills get put on my head. Like, I got kids that I got to put through preschool and blah, blah, blah. Like, this 22-year-old bright-eyed, bushy-tailed guy that you met at 22 may not be the guy standing in front of you. Maybe he is, but you don't know that until we can sit down, and it could be like, well, what are you passionate about again? Like, when I was 22, 23, the passions I had for life, like with my wife, like, I was like a youth pastor, and I had this big marketing company that I thought I was going to be this big time marketer. And so if you ask me at 22, 23, what's your future? I'm like, well, I'm going to help out my dad, Pastor Diego, for the next 20, 25 years. And I'm going to run a big marketing company, or maybe I'll be in real estate, where now you meet me at 32 and it's like, oh, it's a guy doing a podcast and working on a book on divorce, like, it's like, I'm a totally different person than I was when 22, in that sense of like what my goals and what my pursuit was. But I've had a wife who has been great to pivot with me as those passions has changed, as I've been pivoting with her as her passions had changed, and so that recalibration is so important, and never saying stuff like, well, you were this when I married you, or you were that when I met you, and this was like this. It's like, yeah, that may have been true, but that was way before we met, had life, and so even when you meet Jesus, you still got to recognize, like, things are going to be different, and the relationship's going to work out. So I think you got to be on that page. What do you guys think about that?
No, I was
not
just
about
gonna,
what I said.
No,
but.
I was going to ask Chelsea, do you know this about your friends, or have they outwardly said they've been struggling?
No, like probably 4 couples of my friends I've talked to have outwardly said, this is what I'm struggling with.
And then have they give options, or like told you like, this is what we're doing to change it, or have they just complained?
It's really just complaint. And so I say, hey, I am not married. So I don't know what to tell you, but I can guide you to a couple that is married, or go to counseling. So there's things that I know I can't give that other people could, but I'm verbally hearing this stuff, and I'm just like, it makes me so sad, because they're in this deep 6-7 years, and a lot of these couples I'm talking with struggle to communicate. So what I'm hearing is they don't know how to talk to each other, and then also what I'm hearing is one doesn't want to get the help because they don't think the marriage is a problem. So they both have different views of how their marriage is. So I'm still at a loss, which is why I'm asking y'all questions. And it's a lot of couple friends that I have.
I will say this. I think it was Shonda Rhimes. I'm not sure if it was her or not. She had said at a commencement speech one time about her role as a mom and as a in her job, and how somebody said, like, how do you do it all? And she had basically say, I don't. Like, if I'm successful here, I'm failing here, and if I'm successful here, I'm missing this. And I want to connect that into marriage, because I look back on my parents and how they have had so many ebbs and flows in their marriage, and I can look back and I can see that there were times where my dad really had to step up and do everything while my mom was over here. And there were seasons where my mom had to step up and do everything while my dad was over here doing something, whether it was going back to college or trying to build a new restaurant and was not bringing finances. So then my mom had to get 2 jobs, and, with my brother being handicapped and all of these things, there were so many times where, like Adam was saying, like, I'm so thankful for a wife that will pivot with me when I have to pivot. And I just think it's so important to know that if you are going to be in a marriage long term, that there is going to be some long suffering that's going to happen. And there are going to be times where you're going to be taking the brunt of stuff. And to be able to sit there and say, hey, this person is not as driven as I thought he was going to be when we got married, and now we're 7 years in. Well, then maybe it's time for you to step up and be the provider for a season and really encourage your husband or your wife to find what it is that person's passionate about, so that they can then go, and then you can, and so it's this constant ebb and flow when it comes to marriage. But so often we just look at what the person's not bringing to the table, rather than saying, let me pick up the pieces right now, let you find out what it is that you need over the next couple of years, and then we can come and we can really, move forward together.
That's right, because my parents, when they first got married, they were super young, 21, and my mom was the primary provider, had a daycare in LA, it was booming, and my dad was just becoming a firefighter. Over the years, she was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, could no longer work, and so they did shift in a lot of the roles. Even in the home, my dad became the primary cook because my mom was bedridden, and so the primary, this might sound cheesy, but their primary thing that they had that allowed them to ebb and flow in their marriage was this mutual love for God, that at the end of the day, my job is to love you the way that Christ loves me. And so I'm with you through it all. I'm with you through the changes. And I think maybe that's what a lot of couples, now that I'm externally processing, are missing.
Well, this is what I'll say. I agree with Sanaz, but then it's the hard, honest truth, too, that a lot of men need to grow up. And when saying that, I would say, say it, Ashlee. I got a man that's grown.
I'm gonna wait for that counterpunch.
So I would say that a lot of men need to grow up, because I'm able to pivot with my husband because I trust my husband because he follows God. I don't think my husband's going to make an unintentional move without consulting God first. So a lot of men need to stop blaming the marriage and go to God and say, God, where do I need to fix this marriage, and where do I need to pivot this so my wife and I can follow her, and she can follow blindly because she knows that I'm walking with Christ. So there was that TikTok I sent to you yesterday where the guy said, I understand why a lot of women aren't going after men or aren't seeking men, because they're not following Christ. There's no substance. They don't have a foundation. So if a woman doesn't have a firm foundation to follow a man, she'll find her own.
And then so with caveat with that, which is what we talked about a couple podcasts ago, Pastor Adam, like a lot of men are growing up in homes that they don't have that example, and so they're looking not even for a wife, they're looking for a mom. So what advice do you, which then puts the man in that perspective of like, you provide for me. So what, I'm asking a lot of questions today, sorry, but what advice then would you give men who didn't grow up with that, seeing that, being around that, being taught that?
Well, I would say Jermaine is the perfect example. He didn't have
Jermaine, sit in Nancy's spot. Jermaine's our audio guy. Jermaine runs our audio, but he might pertain to this conversation.
What's the deal?
I think he would be a prime example. I mean, I would say, if as far as I can say, he didn't have a father growing up per se. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is
correct.
And
so he did come to church. He did
give us a brief synopsis of like your upbringing, and then Ashlee will bring her point home.
So my mom, my dad both met running the streets, just straight. My dad's a drug dealer, gangster. My mom's just a drug dealer, did drugs, running the streets. That was their life. So they handed me off to my aunt, who loves God. I was raised by a single woman, and so my mom and dad were not heavily in my life and heavily involved like that. So yeah, exactly. You're
Yeah, but like you said, you added your aunt was in church. So your aunt had a firm foundation, brought you to church, surrounded you around the right type of men, got in cahoots with this guy, and you guys have been doing life together for how many years now?
Almost 10 years, 9 years.
Yeah, to where even though he didn't have a father in the house, he knew what he needed and sought it out. So there's a lot of men, like I said, grow up, seek what you want. Don't seek a mom. If you want to seek a man, you want to seek a marriage, there's two different types, because you could seek a wife and just want to be coddled and be treated like a little boy.
Yeah.
It's just the type of man you want to be. So there's some men, Christian men, I will say, grow up, because in a Christian house, biblically standing, you have to follow. You have to follow Christ, so your wife can submit to you. I'm not submitting to Adam if he doing something crazy in the streets. I ain't following that.
Yeah.
But if he's saying, "Hey, Ashlee, this is where I'm going. This is what I want to do. This is the book I want to write. Let's do it, Bo. Let's do it."
Jermaine, I'm throwing you something, so you may go, I don't remember that moment, and I'll explain it. You could bring it. There was like a pivotal moment in our life, because a lot of people know that's been a passion point for mine is guys who necessarily didn't have the best father example. And not that I'm a father by any means, but me and Caleb have coined ourselves to be the People's Padres. So the People's Padres. We'll father anyone who's looking for it. But because I know the benefits and the blessing of having an active father who cares about me enough even to tell me the hard stuff and walk me through the hard stuff. And so for me and you, because one of the aspects, I don't want to share too much of your business, but your father did spend a lot of time in and out of prison, right? So even if you wanted to have a relationship, it wasn't even possible. He was incarcerated.
Right.
And so me knowing that about you, and so it's like you never even had, access to the relationship. But for me and you, there was a pivotal time, like in your young adult life, where as you were becoming a man, you had decided that you knew what was best for your life. No one else. Like, I'm not going to listen to Pastor Adam. I'm not going to listen to anyone. Like, I know what's best for my life. And there was a pivotal conversation that you and I had many, many years ago, prior to you being married, prior to you being a father, because you are those things now, is you called me very upset because you weren't invited to my son's baby shower.
Yes.
And you and I had probably one of the realest conversations that a young man needs to have in order to grow past that threshold of not letting another man speak into your life. Do you remember that? And do you want to give any insights on that?
I will never forget that conversation. No, seriously, it changed my life because, it was like you said, like that was a season of my life where, I don't know, I could thinking about it, like I wanted to just take control of my life and be decisive, but I still didn't have not the wherewithal, but my decision make, like I could be decisive, but I'd be making a stupid decision. So like, I just wanted to just do stuff, make decisions. And so when
in your head, you're like, that's being a man.
Right.
That's a man,
Exactly. So when we talked, I'll just never forget. I'm not going to give the whole transcript of the conversation, but I just remember one key thing, and this forever changed my life, and I'll never forget it. You said, I didn't even think about you. And to give context, I'm calling him into a meeting, and I'm like, yo, I'm your little bro. I'm this, I'm that. And I'm seeing everyone post on social media that they're at this thing. I didn't even know what was going on. And, that was the energy. So we're going into it. And then that you really brought like a solemn spirit to it when you said, let me just clarify. You didn't even come to mind. And so that for me was eye-opening, because it made me realize that when it comes to prioritizing relationships and caring about people, I want to be somebody that comes to mind. And so you gave me scenarios I would have preferred you never even carry on this conversation this way and just have gotten Matthias a gift, and I would have felt bad. And I would have felt bad for not inviting you.
Show me that you love my son. So don't tell me you want to be included.
Exactly. Yeah. So prioritize. If you feel like you want to be a part of my life and in my family, prioritize my life and my family. And so that was you flipped it back, the responsibility on me, not gaslighting, it was honest, because I was trying to demand a place in your life that I wasn't doing the work for.
Yeah.
And so it was
good.
It was wild.
Wow.
And one other aspect right at the beginning, I had asked Jermaine, who am I to you? And Jermaine was like, I don't know what that means. And I said, who am I to you? And he said, I literally don't know how to answer that. And I said, if someone were to ask you on the streets, who is Adam to you, what would you respond with? He said, well, I would respond he's my big brother. He's my mentor. He's like a father figure in my life. And then I said, do your attitudes and your actions exhibit the explanation that you just gave of who I am into your life? And he said, no, it doesn't. So I said, why are you putting an expectation of a role that I'm supposed to have in your life that you won't even give action to?
That's good.
Yeah.
And that was big for us because Jermaine changed like 100%.
I was just gonna ask, what
you know,
changed? What shifted? What did you do differently after the fact?
Yeah, so what's crazy is like, and it's always these kind of nuggets because like I always used to say, I'm a horrible gifter. Like I'm a bad gifter. But like Pastor Adam, in that whole context, the revelation was, no, I just don't. Like if I was being honest, I don't care to gift.
Yeah, you don't care
I
enough.
don't care.
Yeah.
It's not a financial
Yeah.
priority of mine. It's not what I think about. And if I say I care, or if you are who you are to me, I should care. And I should be a good gifter. So like I'm gonna do the tedious things that show I love a person. Go to the store, get a card, and that stuff, what I would be lazy. I'm lazy in that relationship or that caring about that. So that's what changed. I'm like, okay, so-and-so. And so I'll be last minute getting the gift or something like that. But I'm still going to try and show effort. And so it was a life changing.
And the thing was like, if you're looking for someone to fill in that void, then you need to respect someone in the same gravity of what you're saying. So
that's good.
So over the years, I mean, I've been blessed that, I've been able to walk Jermaine through, and processing through him now being a father, him being a husband. I took him to get one of his first cars when he was actually like had to get a loan, and hey, he's calling me. What's a good interest rate, right? This is stuff that normally you just call your dad,
Right.
and your dad just be like, Dad, where do I change a tire? I don't even know how to change a tire, or I'm thinking about doing this side business, right? He'll call me on stuff like I want to make more money for a man. I'm like, bro, that's a MLM scheme. Don't do it, man. Like, okay, I won't. It's like, so having that, but what I would say to a young man is like, you're gonna have a moment where you're gonna want to walk away from the relationship because like that was a moment for us. Like it was like, man, if Jermaine walks away from this relationship, we're like after this conversation where I tell him you didn't even cross my mind, like if he goes, man, forget that, like that would have solidified for him the pain of not really having that male voice in his life, and then would even have crushed out even more to him now being a father. He would have been like, man, well, this is going to exhibit in the relationship with my son because I have never had a relationship where I've been accountable to another man before. Or let's say you're a woman in that sense as well. Like you've never been shown it for a woman or had even a father in your life in the things that the father fulfills for a woman as well, right? So you have to your point, Chelsea, like a guy looking for it, you have to be able to push through the threshold of a man who's going to speak truth to you, and there's going to be an insecurity inside you that tells you reject this, walk away from this, push away from it, and you actually have to lean into that because once you can pass that resiliency, that's what you're building. Is like you're building resiliency in a relationship. Like you have, like there has been stuff that Nathan and Sanaz have told us that I was like, man, bump that. That's probably for them or whatever. And then it's like, no, Adam, listen, be accountable. Caleb recently did something. He said, I had an old friend, and I've shared this before. I had an old friend that's in prison right now. And Caleb asked me, hey, when he gets out of prison, are you gonna restore a relationship with him? I said, man, I don't know. I might. And then Caleb, being my brother, he goes, hey, so I just feel in my spirit, I don't think you should pursue a relationship. And I told Caleb, though I don't understand why you're saying that, I do submit to wisdom that you may see something that I don't because I'm close to it. So even though I don't even reconcile and it's not even on my mind right now, I promise you that I won't pursue that relationship because there's people around me enough that I know care about me that regardless, because my heart was like, yeah, do it. But there's another side that says, no, you just need to be submitted. Sometimes you need to just be like, man, it doesn't make any sense. I'm offended. I'm hurt. I feel like they don't understand. But at the same time, I'm going to assume that they see something in me that I don't. And I'm going to roll with that. I'm going to be submitted to that. And me and my wife have done that before where we're like, we just got to do what they're telling us right now.
That's really good when it comes to mentorship and like mentee relationship. Now that you guys are being mentored and now mentoring people, you guys are doing both. All of you guys at the table, what would you guys like to see more from people our age who are younger, who are coming to you wanting to be mentored? What are some things y'all are seeing where it's like, man, you guys are doing this really well, or we wish you guys did this in regards to this relationship?
Listen.
Okay.
You know, if you truly trust somebody that you would call them a mentor and you come to them with an issue and you, like you said, that is your mentor and you trust them. And that person with the wisdom that you have sought out gives you advice that is biblical and you don't listen, then you risk the chance of the mentor saying, "I'm no longer your mentor." Yeah. And I would say it's one of those things you should submit to what the mentor tells you to do.
Yeah.
Or choose a different mentor. You know, there's so many times people will come to me for advice, take me to lunch, do this, do that, and then they say, "What should I do?" Break up with that guy, like know, and then they don't, and you're just like, what are you coming? Now you no longer value me because
Yeah, let me say this.
Okay, Brooklyn.
Kyrie.
Yeah, no, I've been listening to this Padre since me and I'm Padres to the people. This Padre, his name is Padre Pio. He's big in the Catholic Church. And this is kind of the role the confessional kind of plays in the Catholic Church. We're not a part of that tradition, but where you make yourself accountable to a leader, to a spiritual leader, and you confess your sins to that leader. And it's a healing, it's a therapeutic sort of a thing. And I think that's the reason why people have so much. One of the reasons that people have mental health is because they have so much guilt of their habitual sin, and there's no way to express that. There's no way to get that out. But the church offers that. The Catholic Church has that form, and we're talking about how it would manifest in our particular tradition of church, where you have a mentor, where you have an elder, and you have to be humble enough, you have to be open enough to confess your weaknesses to that elder, to that leader. And then when that mentor and when that leader tells you to do something, you do it. And going back to Padre Pio, like I was hearing about how there were times in the confessional where he would curse out his what do they call them in the Catholic Church? Parishioners. He would curse out the parishioners if they kept coming to him with the same sin. It's like, "Padre Pio, please ask the Lord's forgiveness. I've committed this sin." He goes, "Okay." He'd go through the process. They come back weeks later, "Padre Pio, I've done." And then it got to the point where he's like, "Get out of my church." And he'd start cursing them out. And I think that's the type of energy that
why
you
we're
need.
The people's
Padre. That's why we're the people's Padre. You need somebody. First of all, you need to if you're going to put yourself under somebody, you need to do what they tell you to do. You need to respect their wisdom, respect their guidance, and don't take that for granted. And don't play with them. Don't play around.
And if you're mature enough, if there's abuse there, then you walk away from it. But let's assume you keep the respect and the adoration, and you're like, but it's still my call at the end of the day. But I love that person, which went to my question with Jermaine, who am I to you? Because if he would have just said, "You're my boy," then I would have been like, well, then I'm going to start treating you like my boy. Your homies, they just laugh and listen to you if you're married and you be like, "Oh, look how good this girl looks in Instagram." Your boys, they just laugh and they go, "Oh, you're crazy, man. And I don't mean nothing by it. I'm married." Your boy does that. A father figure, a mentor goes, "Give me your phone right now." We can go talk to your wife right now. Like, that is there's a difference in mentality, and that's why it was important. And I still ask guys that all the time. Who am I to you? Because if they just go, "Oh, you're a guy I listen to," cool. But if they say, "Oh, you're my pastor, you're my this, you're my," okay, well, if you keep me, if I'm in that adoration in your life, let me say something to you real quick. Let me speak something to you. Let me be the people's Padre to you real quick, because sometimes because why I have that. I'm not saying I don't have that. That's why I know how it's important it is.
That's great.
I have those father figures in my life. I also have mother figures in my life, who mother me, who have always been there for me, that give me words of encouragement. There are women in my church who come up to me that are grandmothers and mothers and go, "You are such a good father. You are so loving. You are," and it's like, I need that from a mother figure to encourage me. Or I also need a mother figure to say, "Oh boy, you going places, but you better not forget that family. I'll call you out real quick," and I'll get that stuff, and I'll be like, "Thank you." You know, like, I need that in my life.
Yes.
I don't need you to kiss at my feet. I need you to come check me out, check me as a grandmother in the church, as a mother in the church. So I think I think we all need those areas of life, and like you said, I mean, that's the beauty of the church. That's where the church comes in. That's where the church stands out, because you're not going to get that at the rec center. You're not going to get that at 24-hour fitness, you know, playing basketball. You're not going to get that at the nail salon, getting with your girls, having mimosas and getting nails.
They're just
you're not
going to tell you
that
what you
kind
want
of
to hear.
stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's great.
So it's crucial.
I'll just say, since I'm the testimonial person too. No, like, cause I, like, when I, as a young person growing up in this church and hearing like Pastor Diego say, "What Gerald says goes. What if he calls me, what he says goes." And so as a young man, I'm like trying to process that, like, why, like, first I would ask the question, why would I as a man, right, if I'm a young man, still consider myself a man or whatever, I'm saying, why would I subject myself to what he says goes? But that word submit I started to realize it means that you just trust their judgment. And like, whether it's in a marriage or in a relationship, if you say you submit to somebody, like Pastor Adam, you just said, Caleb said, you know, I'm not going to do that. And so I don't understand it, but I trust his judgment. I submit to him. And that's what I had to process is, you know what, for me to submit means I trust his judgment. So yeah, for me in my life, what Pastor Adam says goes. Because we could talk about it, but I just trust his judgment that much, and it's showing fruit. And, you know, and so that's
good.
Yeah, that's good. And my wife knows over the years, like if we're having a conflict or we're processing something, she knows the process, partly the process of decision making I'm doing, which would respect her. You know, James 5, what Caleb just said, confess your sins to one another, is huge. And then in Corinthians, it's the marriage accountability. It's husband, cover your wives with the water of the washing of the word. Wives, submit to your husband. It's in the sense of the process that the woman trusts that the man is going to God, and God and then God is speaking to the husband, and the husband is covering his wife. And so my wife knows in our conflict and in our good times, bad times, she knows I have a process of pastors that speak into my life. She knows I have brothers that speak into my life. She knows that I can't get away with making big life decisions on an island. She knows that I would never be able. So if I come and I'm like, "Hey babe, this is what I think we're going to do," and we're processing it, she's like, I trust that you've processed that with spiritual people that I respect too, and that I honor too. And so then there is an ability to submit, because we're working in an order that God has given us, rather than me just coming and going, "I decided because I'm the man of this house." Well, you're a crummy man of this house, you know, like you're not accountable to anyone, you know, type of thing. And that's a problem in that sense, or vice versa with the wife, to say, "Well, I've decided," and how did you decide? Well, because I just decided on my own, and that's, you know, that's just as dangerous.
Yeah, and the only thing I would say, to add last thing, Chelsea, is like what I would like to see is an individual that truly wants a mentor. You have to know what a mentor is, and not just see somebody on a pulpit or someone in leadership and say, "I want you to be my mentor." Why? What do you see about me? What do I reflect? What does my marriage reflect? What do you see? How have I treated my kids? I just recently, a girl asked me to be her mentor, and I've known her for forever. And we've had the same similarities in life, but we've had the same similarities of discipline. So she knows, as being a mentee, she knows that the type of voice I use, the type of correction I use, she knows me personally to where she's not going to get offended if I tell her something or if I don't agree with her. So if you're looking for a mentor just to shoot your ideas, don't get a mentor. Don't waste their time.
Get a friend.
Get a friend. Yeah. So I think that,
and I was recently mentoring someone who struggled with decision making. They did the opposite, right? So there was Jermaine's story, which is, I want to be a man on my own. I want to make my own decisions. I don't want anyone to speak into my life. But then I've dealt with other guys who haven't had active fathers, or maybe they had an active father, but not a great example. And they couldn't make a decision. So I'm challenging them differently. I'm saying, listen, I'm going to make some suggestions, but you better not pick anything I say, because you struggle making decisions. So you better not walk away and say, well, Pastor Adam told me to do this. Pastor Adam told me, because you're just looking for someone, you're just looking for a cop out. You're looking for someone to make a decision for you. I've had married men look at me and say, man, just tell me to get a divorce and I'll do it. I say, man, that's a decision you got to make on your own, brother. Like, you're not going to go to your wife and say, well, Pastor Adam told me this or whatever. You know, it's like, you better not get a cop out. You better stand up on your own 2 feet. You better get with God. You decide on your own. You're accountable to God on your own. You will stand before God by yourself one day. You will not have me next to you. You will not have your mommy next to you or anything like that. Like, you got to do this on your own. So therefore take these steps on your own. So there isn't just kind of a one size fit all, right? It's like, you just got to, you be aware. And as you get to know with people, and that's what I tell people right away is like, if I'm mentoring the next generation, I tell them, listen, if you're only, if you're going to have 20 to 30 jobs before you get 60 retirement age, chances are you're going to have 20 to 30 mentors. So, you know, like, because it takes time to get to know each other. So I have a lot of young guys that I'll sit with, or me and Ashlee, we have young couples, and they're in and out of our lives. Because the moment we say something that they're not rocking with, and, oh, well, I can just go find someone new. And recently, one time, we had someone that came to find out they had 4 different mentor couples that they didn't tell us about. So we're talking to a couple one time, and that couple gets brought up, the couple in the middle, and the other couple goes, oh yeah, we've been meeting with them. We've been spending time, and we go, in what way? And they go, oh, well, we've been like mentoring them. And we're like, wait, oh. And then we go sit with that other couple, and they're just kind of like, yeah, because, you know, if maybe we don't agree with something you guys say, we just want perspective. We want options on the table so that, and I go, listen, here's the thing, I'll be your mentor if you're paying me. Like, you can choose to decide to listen to me if you're paying me $200 a session. Right. If you're not, and I'm doing this thing for free, and oftentimes, like, me and my wife have a rule, like, if we're a mentor in your life and you're around us, you don't ever pick up the tab. So we're going to Disneyland, we pick up the tab. We're going to dinner, we pick up the tab, because we feel like that's God's call in our life. So that's my thing, is like, if I'm investing money in you as a young couple, and then come to find out you got 5 to 6 other people you're running our advice through, like a little filter first. Wow. Yeah, we're gonna have a problem. And the young generation, this next generation, they do a lot of that because we have Instagram, so we do all these we do all these votes, and we do we do like, how many of you guys think I should get Chick-fil-A or Whopper Grill today? And you know, you do a vote and you decide.
Who chooses
and it's like,
Whopper
you know,
Grill over
right.
Yeah, that's bad.
Or you trust those people.
Or you go like, here are the 4 options in movies today. Which movie should me and my friends get? So you just have to be careful. It's like a lot of that mentality, it does bleed over into other areas of life. And the last thing you want it to do is to bleed over into your relationship with the Lord, because then we end up treating God's words as if it's an optional thing as well.
That's
so
good.
it's a very dangerous mentality to go where you don't submit to anyone, and you have no process in which you create resiliency in your life. Like, I'm resilient in my marriage. There are times that are difficult. There are times where they're just dry, and you look at each other and you're like, man, I just feel like we're roommates. But unless you're resilient to know that there are going to be good days, there is going to be a day on the other side, outside of the reasons Caleb shared, which is, you know, Matthew chapter 5 reasons of Jesus speaking of reason for divorce, which is breaking the covenant of marriage, not just the sexuality of marriage, but the covenant of marriage that you make on your wedding day. If you're keeping those things intact, you have to be resilient. And that's a thing that we don't have a lot today, is that ability to be resilient. So anyone got any closing thoughts before we finish up today? It was a great conversation.
That's good.
I think we need a part 2. I like talking about. I think Ashlee needs to come back. No, Ashlee. I like hearing Ashlee's wisdom. She's so amazing. I love it.
You got there's 2 open chairs right here.
Be a man.
Caleb let you off on that one.
He did. He's like, oh.
But I haven't heard Tate in a few months, so it's not fresh. It's not fresh on the burner.
Throw it in there. Throw it in there for you.
Let me do research. Talking back to you.
If there's a part 2, I'm not coming. I'm a stand-in.
Caleb's gonna come in, and who's that guy? The black guy who wears the glasses. He passed away.
Samuels.
Yeah,
What's
Samuels.
his name?
Something. Kevin Samuels.
Kevin Samuels.
Yeah, Caleb's gonna listen to Andrew Tate.
Oh,
Kevin Samuels.
Lord.
He's gonna come in hot next
Come
time.
back, Lotus.
Well, then we're gonna go listen to. Gosh, I don't know. Are there? Who are some women? Who are some?
Just name a
that
woman.
Drew.
Every woman.
The Drew Afuelo,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
girl
Yeah,
on TikTok. We're gonna go listen to her.
Any woman, really. Yeah.
Oh.
We need a part
I'm
two.
just
Wait a
saying,
minute.
Any Woman podcast. They be bashing men every day on Every Woman podcast.
Yeah,
There's
the
only
only
a few
one
men.
that
Definitely has one.
God bless everybody. Goodbye.